Life is a winding road, no telling where it goes.
Hey guys, Amber here with the Meeple family, and today I am going to be doing a quick how to play of the Guild of Merchants Explorers, and this is a new game brought to us by AEG Games. This game does play 1 to 4 players. It takes about 45 minutes to play, and the recommended age is 14 and up. So I'm going to be walking you through how to play this game, also touching on the solo aspect, and of course at the end I'll give you some quick final thoughts, some things I really enjoyed about the Guild of Merchant Explorers. So without further ado, let's head down to the table and get started. Now, Merchant Explorers does play up to 4 people, as I stated earlier, and there are 8 maps included, and each map is double-sided. So within the game, you will find 4 different maps to explore. Each map also has its own matching objective deck, and we'll get into how these work in just a moment. For this video, let's go ahead and select Avenia as our map to explore. Once you've chosen your map, you can put all the other maps back in the box, and you can also put the matching objective decks of the maps you're not using back in the box. Each matching objective deck will have 6 cards to choose from. In order to set up the game at random, we'll go ahead and pick 3. And then you can return the rest back to the box. You're also going to want to pick your player color. For this example, I'll go ahead and pick yellow. There's also a couple other components I want to show you. These 4 little tiles are used for the solo game, and we'll go over that at the end of the video. Some of the maps also use crystals, but for this particular map, we won't need these. So we can go ahead and return these to the box as well. Once each player has selected their player color, they can go ahead and separate them into explorers, which are the cubes, and into villages. Before we get started, we're also going to take a moment to set up the exploration board. The Guild of Merchant Explorers is played over 4 rounds, and in the game, these rounds are referred to as eras. Within the game, you will find cards that can be placed on top of each era. So go ahead and do that now. You're then going to want to make sure you have the 5 basic Explorer cards. You should be able to find these pretty easily, and these Explorer cards are going to match the cards depicted on the top of the Explorer's board. In order to start our first round, we are going to take the Roman numeral 1 era card and shuffle it into our 5 basic Explorer cards. We can go ahead and leave these face down as a draw deck next to our exploration board. Go ahead and take a moment to shuffle the 40 treasure cards, and you're also going to take a moment to shuffle the investigate cards. Now let's go over the other components we see. These are the discovery towers. Go ahead and just make sure these are placed within player's reach. You're also going to have different coins. We have a 1, 5, 10, and 50 coin. You'll also need your treasure tokens, which just look like a little treasure chest, as well as your trading post tokens. And as we did in an earlier step, we do have our 3 goal cards for this Avenia map on display. And now we're ready to start the game. In order to win the game, you need to accrue the most money. This can be done in a variety of ways. But before we dive into that, let's go ahead and take a look at the map and some of the terrain types we're going to see. Now, as you may be able to notice, there are 4 types of terrain. We have grassland, which is the green terrain. We have desert, which is kind of the yellow, light tan terrain. We have mountain, which is here, and we also have the sea. In the middle of the Avenia map, we are going to find the capital space, and this is where you're allowed to explore from during the start of the game. Now, anytime the game references regions, that's just a continuous group of spaces of the same terrain type. So here I can see there is a mountainous region. Now you're also going to notice a lot of icons on these terrain spaces. So let's go over a few of those. Of course, some of the spaces like these here are just blank. Some of the spaces have coins, and when you explore these spaces, you will take the depicted number of coins. There's also spaces like this one here in the sea. This is called a ruin space. And these ruin spaces allow you to earn treasure cards. You're also going to notice city spaces. These are the ones that have some type of a building on them with a number. When you're able to connect 2 cities, this is a great way to set up trading routes and earn money. And we'll go over that in just a moment. The other spaces you're going to see on the outside of this map, it looks like there are 4 of them here, are the the discovery spaces, and these discovery spaces will earn you money as well. The last thing to note is down here at the bottom. Depending on what era we're in, different items will be of different point values. So if we are to build a village in era 1, we will get 1 coin. But if we build a village in era 4, we'll get 4 coins. And this one over here has to do with the discovery spaces. Now these work a little bit different. If you discover 1 space, you'll get 6 points. If you discover all 4, you can get 14 points. I think the best way for us to understand gameplay is to go ahead and play through the first era together. So in order to get started, we're first going to use the exploration deck that we set up in the beginning of the game. Simply pick one player to be the person that manages the exploration deck. To get started, let's go ahead and turn over our first card. This Explorer card allows us to place 2 explorers, one at a time, on 2 adjacent spaces. Just keep in mind, the first explorer must be adjacent to a village, explorer, or your capital. And the second explorer must be adjacent to the first explorer we laid. Now this particular one, it doesn't matter what terrain we place these explorers on. So let's take a look at how this works on our map. So all players at the same time are going to take their 2 explorer cubes. In order to explore, because this is the beginning of the game, our first explorer has to be adjacent to our capital, which is that big circle in the middle of the map. So I'm going to go ahead and place my first explorer in the mountain space, because this particular card, it doesn't matter what the terrain is. It is a wild terrain. So I have the option to place this in the same terrain, which is a mountain, or I could place it in the grassland or the desert, as long as it's adjacent to the first explorer that I laid down. I think for this example, I'm going to go ahead and place it in the mountain space. Now, as you can see, I've actually completed a region. And when you complete a region, you are able to build a village. So when building a village, you can decide what space you would like to place your village. The caveat being that the space you place your village has to be empty, meaning I can't place it on top of coins or on top of a city or a ruin space. It has to be an empty space. So if I look here, both of these mountain spaces are empty. So I can choose either one. I'm going to choose the one that is furthest away from the capital. And the reason is because in my subsequent turns, I'm now able to not only place explorers off of my capital, but also off of my village. Now, in addition to playing my village, I also want to look down and collect my income. Anytime that I build a village in the first era, I will get 1 coin. Once all players have placed their explorer cubes, villages, and earned any income, we can go ahead and flip over our next card. Now, this Explorer card allows us to place up to 2 explorers, one at a time, on desert spaces. As you can see here, these desert spaces are overlapping. This means that they do not have to be adjacent to one another. And you can kind of see the difference in these cards to let us know which ones can be placed anywhere and which ones need to be placed adjacent. So all players can take their next 2 Explorer cubes. Now, keep in mind, when you are placing explorers, they have to be placed adjacent to your capital, other explorers, or a village. So I have a couple different options of the desert spaces I can place these explorers on. And I think what I'm going to do is place 1 here and 1 here. Now, this most recent one has a coin on it, so I will go ahead and grab that. And as soon as everyone is done placing, we can go ahead and flip over another explorer card. Okay, we have 2 grassland. So similar to our desert, these do not have to be adjacent to each other. So if I want to place 1 here and 1 here, I am allowed to do that. So we'll go ahead and get 2 more explorers. And I think what I am going to do is place 1 on top of this city, and then I will place 1 on top of this coin space, allowing me to get 1 coin. And once everyone is done placing their explorers, building villages, gathering coins, we can go ahead and flip over the next explorer card. Now here we have flipped over our era card. So let me show you how this works. When you flip over the era card, each player will grab have 2 cards from the Investigate deck, and they're going to be able to choose one of these to keep. So let's take a look at what these are. This first one here says explore 1 grassland space, then explore up to 3 spaces connected to the grassland space in a straight line. Okay, and this one here says explore up to 1 sea and 4 desert spaces in any order. I think for what I'm trying to do, I am actually going to keep the one that lets me do 1 grassland and then the 3 spaces off of it. So this will get discarded on the bottom of the pile. Once you've chosen your Investigate card, you're going to go ahead and take that action. This is going to allow me up to 4 explorers. I can explore 1 grassland space, which I think I'm going to do this one right here. And then I can explore up to 3 spaces connected to it, but it has to form a straight line. And we will do 3 in a straight line off of that. Now just keep in mind, everyone's Investigate card will be different. So as soon as everyone has completed their personal Investigate card, we can go ahead and flip over the next Explorer cards. Now, of course, based on our exploration deck, we can narrow down that it's either going to be a mountain space or the 3 ocean spaces. And sure enough, we have 1 mountain space. So I am going to go ahead and just go right here so that I can get myself a coin. Okay, and of course, once everyone is done, we will flip over our last Explorer card, which are our 3 Cs. Now this one, similar to our little wild card here, we do have to place these adjacent to one another and they do have to form a straight line. So I will get my 3 Explorers. I'd really like to try to get to this ruin space right here. But in order to do that, I actually only need 2 out of my 3 Explorers I'm allowed to place. So I'm going to go ahead and just place the 2 Explorers, and I don't have to place this last Explorer. Now, let's talk about what happens when we cover up these ruin spaces. When we cover up these ruin spaces, this is where you're going to get that treasure token, and you're going to place it just as a reminder that you have already been to and discovered this ruin. And you can place your Explorer right back on top. Now, every time you discover a ruin, you get to draw a treasure card. These cards are going to have different benefits. This one is a collectible item. So what this treasure card is telling me is that if I'm able to collect more of these vases, depending on how many I collect, will dictate how many coins I get at the end of the game. So if I only have 1 of these, I get 1 coin. But if I'm able to collect 4 of these, I will get 16 coins. So you'll just go ahead and hang on to these treasures till the end of the game. Now, some of these treasures may give you immediate awards, like this one here gives you 2 coins, or this one here lets you place an explorer. You still have to follow the rules, placing that 1 explorer next to a village, capital, or other explorer, but you'll get an extra explorer that you can put out on the board. And that's just a peek of some of the treasure cards. There's several treasures that will give you endgame objectives that will help you earn coins for the end of the game as well. Now, one of the things I forgot to go over is when I created the link between these 2 cities, that is called a trading route. So the way that you calculate this is you take the 2 numbers. So for here, my 1 city is a 2 and my other city is a 2. So 2 times 2 is 4. So I'll go ahead and get 4 coins, and then I have to cover up 1 of these cities, meaning that I won't be able to utilize it in another trading route later on. So I'm going to go ahead and cover up this one and just set my explorer back on. So creating these trading routes, which basically is just a direct line of explorers from one city to the other. As soon as you've done this, you're able to set up that trading route. Just be sure that you cover up 1 of the cities with the city token. As you can see, there's quite a few cities on this particular map. So as long as you're able to explore and set up these explorer routes, you should be able to acquire quite a few trading routes if you so desire. So once we've gone through all of our explorer deck, the first era is over. Let's quickly look at these goal cards up here at the top and how they work. This first one here says discover 5 villages. Now we can see here I've only discovered 1 this first era, but the first person to discover 5 villages is going to get 10 coins. All other players who later fulfill this goal will only get 5. So there is a little bit of a race to try to be the first one to score and earn more points. This next one here says explore 3 ruin spaces along the border of the map. I've explored a ruin space, but I wouldn't say it's on the border. And here we have place place 2 trading posts on cities valued 3 or greater. Well, I was able to place a trading post, but mine was only valued at 2. So I'll have to keep an eye out for that and maybe try to venture up to some of these higher trading post amounts so I could potentially get that goal as well. Now, at the end of the round, what we do is simply remove our explorer cubes. You don't want to remove any tokens you've placed or villages. Those are going to remain on your map. Now it's time to set up our Explorer deck for Era 2. In order to do this, we're going to take our Era 1 card, but we're also going to take the Era 2 card. Now, during gameplay, when the Era 1 card comes up, we're going to reference our Era 1 Investigate card, and we're going to be able to take that action again. And when the Era 2 card comes up, we're going to go back to our Investigate deck, draw 2 cards, just like we did for Era 1, select one of them, and assign it to our Era 2 location on our map. Gameplay is going to continue just like this in our 3rd round, which is Era 3. And in our 4th round, when we introduce this Era card, we get to select what Era action we would like to take. Now, using the example from our first Era, I can see that I now have 2 places that my explorers can start from. They can start from the capital, but I've also created that village, which, remember, anytime you fill in a region, you're able to place a village. That can now be used as a starting location in addition to your capital. So as you create villages further and further into your map, it's going to allow you to hopefully reach some of those places on the outskirt of the map a little sooner. The only thing I don't think we've talked about are these discovery spaces. Discovery spaces are basically a wild terrain, meaning as long as you have the ability to place an explorer, you can go ahead and explore that no matter what terrain card you have. Now, once you place your explorer cube on a discovery space, go ahead and take a discovery tower, and you're just going to exchange your explorer cube for that discovery tower. Of course, once a discovery space has been explored, it can't be explored again. You're also going to award yourself coins based on how many discovery spaces you have discovered. At the end of the game, you're going to add up all of the coins you've collected throughout gameplay. And you're also going to want to look at any treasure cards you've acquired and add those up as well. And basically, the person that made the most money won the game. And that's how you play the Guild of Merchant Explorers. Now let's quickly look at how a solo game is played. A solo game is going to be set up exactly the same way. You're going to go ahead and prepare your Explorer deck as you would in a multiplayer game, and you're also going to have your 3 goal cards up at the top. Now, one of the main differences with the solo variant is in order to win, you have to complete every goal, and you need to do it in order because you're going to be racing against these tiles here, which are going to cover up spaces, making it impossible for you to win the game if you don't try to complete these systematically. So Era 1 will be played as normal. When you get to Era 2 and flip over the Era 2 Explorer card, before you pick up your Investigate cards, you're going to take the Era 2 tile and cover up the leftmost space on the first goal card. In the 3rd Era, when you flip up the Era 3 card, before you take your Investigate card, you're going to place the Era 3 tokens, blocking you from fulfilling the first goal and on the leftmost space of the 2nd goal. And on the final round of the game, when you have your option to select, you're going to place the final 2 solo tokens, removing the 2nd goal from the game and, of course, covering up the leftmost space of the 3rd goal. So, in order to win the solo game, remember you do have to complete all 3 goals. And if these tiles block you from doing so, well, you lost the game. So be sure that you pay attention to these goals and complete them before they're blocked by the AI. Now, in addition to needing to complete the goals, at the beginning of the game, you can also set your difficulty, and you set this based on the threshold of coins you would like to end your game with. And that's a quick overview of the solo variant of the Guild of Merchant Explorers. Well, as always, thank you so much for taking time to join me at the table on that quick overview of how the Guild of Merchant Explorers plays, and of course, hopefully allowing you to make a good informed decision on if it's a good fit for your gaming table. I think the easiest way that we can categorize this game is kind of like a hybrid of a flip and write, because really, instead of a pen and paper, you're basically just putting the cubes on each round and clearing them off and unlocking villages that you can build from. So I have had the chance to play this not only solo, but with a group of 4. And I will say one of my favorite ways to play a game is when we're all kind of playing together and there's not a lot of downtime. The only downside of this game is it does feel very isolating. There's not a lot of player interaction. Overall, this is a really easy game to teach, and it's a pretty quick game to learn, especially with the repetition of the rounds. And once you understand kind of some of the iconography, it makes gameplay really easy. Everybody we've played this game with really does enjoy it, and I'm going to be doing a solo playthrough later on the channel, so be sure you stay tuned for that. As always, we love sharing games that we as a family intentionally play around our board gaming table, and the Guild of Merchant Explorers is definitely one of those games. This is one I really enjoy solo, but I also love to gather around the table and play with friends and family. So if this sounds like a game you might enjoy, you may want to pick up a copy for yourself. As always, we'd love to have you give this video a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe. We'll see you later.
Life is a winding road, no telling where it goes.